Hi, my name is Amy, and I work at the reference desk at the John McIntyre Library. And since June is audiobook month, I wanted to share some recommended audiobooks and narrators with you today. I started listening to audiobooks myself when I had to do some driving back and forth to Columbus, and then I totally got hooked, and now I can't drive without having a good audiobook to listen to. So today I'm going to share a few books that I've listened to recently or have on my list of things to listen to, and also some favorite narrators. The first one I want to share is called Eleanor Oliphant. This has actually been recommended by several book clubs, and though I haven't listened to it yet, it's next on my list. If you read the book A Man Called Ove, it's sort of the same type of story. It's kind of a lonely curmudgeon. She herself thinks that she's doing fine, but some things are going to change for her. And others look at her sort of as an awkward outcast, but she's happy with her life, but that something is about to change. The next one is This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger. Now, you might be familiar with his books for his mystery series featuring Corker Connor, who's a retired sheriff in Minnesota. This title also takes place in Minnesota, but it is not part of that series. It is a standalone. And it's kind of an Odyssey type adventure story, or might remind you a little bit of Huck Finn because they are going down the river. Narrator is Scott Brick, and it takes place in 1932. There are 4 orphans who've escaped from a notorious boarding school, and they're trying to make their way to some relatives that live in St. Louis to have a better life. The next one is, have you seen Louis Velez? I absolutely love this book. The narration is just fantastic. The 2 main characters are a quite elderly woman and a teenage boy, and the narration just makes those 2 characters just come to life. It's really a lovely book. It has some dark themes to it, but it's all in all, it's about the power of kindness, and I highly recommend it. The next one is Big Sky by Kate Atkinson. You might have heard of this TV series called Case Histories, with the investigator Jackson Brody. This is part of that series, though you don't really have to know the rest of the series to enjoy this particular book. It does have some very dark themes going on. There's human trafficking and child abuse, which sounds pretty dark, but it's actually, there's a sense of humor to this book because Jackson Brody himself is just has a streak of humor. And if you're interested in watching the TV series, we do have those on DVD here at the library. Beartown is by Frederick Backman. He also wrote A Man Called Ove, and I highly recommend that as an audiobook, as well as My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. That's also one of his books. It's an excellent audio. This particular one, Beartown, is about a hockey team, and you might just think of it as a hockey story, getting ready for the next big game. But you get quite involved with the characters, both the teenagers and the adults involved with this team. Little Files Everywhere is currently a drama on Hulu. It stars Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. When it came out a few years ago, it was named the best book of the year. And that's actually the one that I'm listening to right now. I'm quite enjoying it. Evie Drake Starts Over. This is a sweet kind of romance type story. I'm not a big fan of romance, but I really enjoyed this one. And it's a very nice little rom-com. This slide is about a narrator called Bonnie Turpin. I first heard her when I listened to The Help. And The Help was what we call a multi-voice narration. There was a different narrator for each of the 4 main characters, and Bonnie was one of those narrators, and she was just outstanding. She's also narrated The Hate U Give and On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, also Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. And just a couple comments about multi-voice narration. Jodi Picoult's books frequently use that kind of narration, and especially Leaving Time and Small Great Things are really outstanding examples of that. The mystery series by Louise Penny is one of my favorite series, and I frequently, once I read a book, I will not go back and read it again because I feel like I know the story. But in this case, after I read the books, I've gone back and started going through the whole series in the audiobook form. And Ralph Cosham recorded the first 10 books of the series, and he won an Audiophile Earphones Award and also the Library Journal Awards for Best Audiobook for the title Beautiful Mystery. He's really an outstanding narrator. Sadly, he passed away, and he was taken over, the narration was taken over by Robert Bathurst, and these are available on Hoopla. Now, interestingly enough, the book Watership Down, which is sort of a classic children's story by Richard Adams, Ralph Cosham also did the narration on that particular book. And if you're looking for a good family story to listen to, maybe you're on a car trip, hopefully one of these days we'll be able to do those again, I would highly recommend this. And there's actually a new version of Watership Down that just came out, and it's also has a very wonderful narration, but it's a different narrator. This time it's Peter Capaldi, and this is a new version of it, and that's available on Hoopla. And if you think of Watership Down as just being a bunny story, it's much more than that. It's really an epic journey, and it's quite a bit of adventure and courage and survival, and the friendships in the story are just lovely. It's a wonderful family listen. Also, for family listening, you might want to check out the Harry Potter series. You've probably already read the books or seen the movies, but listening to this narrator, who is Jim Dale, do the series is just a wonderful experience. He also narrates a couple of other books that are quite good. The Night Circus. In The Night Circus, the author just has beautiful, beautiful imagery, and the narrator really brings that out. He also did In the Kingdom of Ice, and Mr. Dale said that that was actually one of his favorite books to narrate because he found it to be just a fascinating story, and it's a true story and a true thriller. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the new books that are just coming out that might make good summer listens for you. The first one is brand new, and it's in the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. It just came out, and it's already #1 on the USA Today best-selling books list. It's The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and it's a prequel actually to the Hunger Games series because it follows the journey of Coriolanus Snow in his path to power, and it begins on the morning of the 10th Hunger Games, 64 years before the events of the previous books. Also, a new book that has come out is called The End of October. This book is really, it's almost chilling in the fact that it's so creepily timely because it's about a virus that takes over the world. And it's, like I said, it's just very timely, and it's quite the adventure story. It's if you like Michael Crichton, it's that type of story. And he did quite a bit of research before he wrote this book. And so some of the scenarios of what would happen if this virus took over are the scenarios that are happening right now. If you want to get ready for the 4th of July, you might enjoy this historical book called The First Conspiracy by Brad Meltzer. It's actually about the plot to kill George Washington back in the early years of the American Revolution. And he also just came out with a new book. It's called The Lincoln Conspiracy. And everyone knows the story of Abraham Lincoln's assassination in 1865, but there was actually an original conspiracy to kill him 4 years earlier in 1861 when he was on his way to Washington, D.C. for his first inauguration. Another new book that came out and has just been chosen by Reese's Book Club is The Henna Artist. This kind of gives a glimpse into the culture of India. The henna artist herself was escaped an abusive marriage and became a very successful henna artist for some of the rich women in India. And also a new book out is It's Not All Downhill From Here by Terry McMillan. It's been noted that it might be one of her best works, and the listeners are going to meet 68-year-old Lo Curry and her lifelong friends as they encourage each other and argue and confront aging. A beach read is called The Second Home. This is about 3 very different siblings on a summer house on Cape Cod. And it's about their childhood memories of being at that house and their tangled family history and their most closely guarded secrets. This book is, oddly enough, called Beach Read, and it's a news novel that's getting a lot of buzz this summer. It's about a romance writer who no longer believes in love and a literary writer stuck in a rut. And they both engage in a summer-long challenge that might upend everything that they believe about happily ever afters. Next is 28 Summers, another beach read. This is by Ellen Hilderbrand. If you're familiar with her work, she has many of them are set at Nantucket. This particular one is the Nantucketization of the world's most romantic adultery story. That's actually inspired by the 1978 movie Same Time Next Year, if you happen to remember that. So she creates her own pair of annual secret lovers, and this is what that story is about. On Ocean Boulevard by Mary Alice Monroe is part of the Beach House series. If you are a fan of hers, you'll recognize her signature love of animals and will also enjoy the picturesque settings and the heartwarmingly entwined character arcs. And lastly, we have Hello Summer by Mary Kay Andrews, and it just isn't summer until the new Mary Kay Andrews book comes out. This one is about a small town family own newspaper with a political scandal, and then this morphs into a thriller. So there you have it. There are some recommendations for this summer. I hope you get a chance to enjoy some of these, and happy listening.